Captain Zephyr of the merchant vessel. Silver Dawn watched helplessly as the Korthak raider ships closed in around them. His crew of peaceful Valdorian traders had been making their routine supply run to the outer colonies when the pirates had appeared from behind the asteroid field. Now they were trapped, their small cargo ship no match for the 15 heavily armed vessels surrounding them. "Send out the distress signal on all frequencies," Zephyr commanded his communications officer, Nixis. Her silver-scaled hands trembled as she worked the console. The Valdorians were an ancient race known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and diplomacy, but they had always relied on others for protection. Their ships carried no weapons beyond basic defense shields. The lead Korthak vessel, a brutal, wedge-shaped destroyer called the Bloodfang, moved closer. Its captain, a scarred warrior named Grimjaw, had built his reputation on ruthless efficiency. His voice crackled through the comm system with barely contained savagery. "Valdorian scum, prepare to be boarded. Your cargo of rare crystals will make us rich, and your crew will fetch good prices in the slave markets of Nexus Prime." Grimjaw's laughter was like grinding metal. "You have exactly 3 minutes to lower your shields or we start shooting." Zephyr closed his eyes in despair. The Silver Dawn carried medical crystals desperately needed by plague victims on Koros the 7th. Thousands would die without them. But what choice did he have? His people were merchants and scholars, not warriors. "Captain," Nixis whispered urgently, "I'm receiving a response to our distress call." "Already?" Zephyr's golden eyes widened with surprise. "From whom?" "The signal shows Terran origin, Earth designation, something called the Human Defense Initiative." A chill ran through the bridge crew. Everyone in this sector had heard whispers about the humans. They were newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only decades ago. But the stories that spread through trade networks were disturbing. They came from a death world, a planet so hostile it had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. The communication channel opened, and a steady human voice filled the bridge. "Silver Dawn, this is Captain Marcus Steele of Ray. The Terran vessel Indomitable. We received your distress signal. Hold your position, help is en route." "Human vessel," Zephyr replied, his voice shaking slightly. "We appreciate your response, but we are outnumbered 15 to 1. Our situation may be hopeless." There was a brief pause, then Captain Steele's voice returned with what sounded almost like amusement. 15 ships? That's unfortunate, for them." Before Zephyr could ask what he meant, space around them began to shimmer and distort. One by one, massive vessels materialized from hyperspace, their angular hulls bearing the distinctive blue and silver markings of Earth's fleet. Not just 1 or 2 ships, but an entire battle group. 8 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and at the center, a colossal dreadnought that dwarfed everything else in the system. The Korthak pirates' confident chatter turned to panicked shouts as their sensors registered the new arrivals. Grimjaw's voice had lost its swagger entirely. "Where do they come from? How did they get here so fast?" Captain Steele's calm voice cut through the chaos. "Attention, Korthak vessels. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system and release the merchant ship. Failure to comply will result in immediate neutralization. This is your only warning." Grimjaw's shock quickly turned to rage. The Korthak had built their reputation on fear and overwhelming numbers. No one challenged them in their own territory. His scarred face twisted into a snarl as he opened a channel to all his ships. "These soft humans think they can intimidate us with fancy ships," he growled. "Show them what Korthak warriors are made of. All vessels, attack pattern Omega. Destroy the human fleet first, then we'll take our time with the Valdorians." The pirate ships launched themselves at the human formation, their crimson energy weapons blazing across space. Plasma bolts and particle beams lanced toward the Terran vessels in a coordinated assault that had overwhelmed countless victims before. What happened next defied everything Captain Zephyr thought he knew about space combat. The human ships moved, with impossible precision, their formations flowing like liquid mercury as they engaged the pirates. Their point defense systems created walls of light that intercepted incoming fire, while their own weapons responded with devastating accuracy. The lead human destroyer, Prometheus, rolled gracefully through a barrage of plasma fire that should have crippled it. Instead, its adaptive armor absorbed the energy while its railguns sent tungsten rounds screaming across space at relativistic speeds. The first Korthak frigate exploded in a brilliant flash as the projectiles tore through, its hull like paper. Impossible, Nixis whispered from her station. Their technology must be incredibly advanced. But Zephyr noticed something else. It wasn't just advanced technology that made the humans so effective. It was how they fought. Every move was calculated, every formation designed to maximize their advantages while minimizing their exposure. They fought like they had been doing this for centuries, not decades. The massive human dreadnought, Sovereign, hadn't even fired its main guns yet. It simply moved through the battle like a mountain of steel, its smaller weapons picking off pirate, fighters and boarding craft with methodical precision. Captain Steele's voice remained utterly calm as he coordinated the engagement. Prometheus, target their command ship's engines. Phoenix Squadron, sweep those fighters off our flanks. Sovereign, prepare main battery for precision strike on hostile flagship. 3 more Korthak ships died in the next minute, their hulls cracked, opened by focused particle beams and kinetic strikes. The survivors found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn, their weapons unable to penetrate the humans' adaptive defenses. Grimjaw watched his fleet being systematically dismantled and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine fear. These weren't the soft, peaceful species the Korthak usually preyed upon. These humans fought with cold efficiency that spoke of hard-won experience. All ships, fall back to defensive formation beta, he ordered, his voice cracking slightly. Focus fire on their flagship. But the humans had anticipated this as well. The moment the pirates regrouped, the Terran ships shifted their formation, creating overlapping fields of fire that caught the Korthak vessels in a deadly crossfire. 2 more pirate ships were crippled in seconds, their crews scrambling for escape pods. This is madness, Grimjaw snarled into his comm. How can newcomers fight like this? They've barely been in space for 50 years. Captain Steele's response came through on an open channel, broadcast to all ships in the area. His tone was conversational, almost educational. You're making a fundamental error in your assessment. We may be new to space, but we're not new to war. Humans have been perfecting the art of combat for thousands of years on our homeworld. We've simply adapted those lessons to a new environment. The human fleet's next coordinated strike left 6 more Korthak ships dead in space, their hulls torn apart by the precise application of overwhelming firepower. The remaining 3 pirate vessels began transmitting surrender signals, their crews, nerve finally broken by the methodical destruction of their comrades. Grimjaw stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, the humans had reduced his mighty fleet from 15 ships to 3 floating wrecks and a handful of survivors. The Bloodfang itself had taken heavy damage, its starboard weapons array completely destroyed and life support failing on multiple decks. Captain, his terrified communications officer stammered, the remaining ships are requesting permission to surrender. Never, Grimjaw roared, his pride refusing to accept defeat. Signal the Nexus Syndicate. Tell them we need reinforcements. The humans may have surprised us, but they won't survive what's coming. On the bridge of the Silver Dawn, Captain Zephyr watched the aftermath of the battle with awe and growing concern. The human ships had fought with terrifying efficiency, but now he could see their true nature. They weren't just warriors, they were strategists who thought several moves ahead. Captain Steele, Zephyr transmitted, we cannot express our gratitude enough. But I fear your actions today may have consequences. The Korthak are part of a larger criminal syndicate. They will seek revenge. Captain Steele's image appeared on the main screen, a middle-aged human with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to have seen too much. His uniform was simple but bore the scars of countless battles. Captain Zephyr, we appreciate your concern, but humans have a saying. If you want peace, prepare for war. We didn't come to this sector looking for a fight, but we won't run from one either. The tactical display showed new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. Not just a few ships, but dozens. The Nexus Syndicate had responded to Grimjaw's call with overwhelming force. Battlecruisers, carriers, and support vessels filled space as the criminal organization's war fleet assembled. Admiral Voss, the Syndicate's military commander, opened a channel that reached every ship in the system. His cybernetic implants gleamed. As he spoke, his voice enhanced by artificial modulators. "This is Admiral Voss of the Nexus Warfleet. The human vessels will surrender immediately, or we will demonstrate why our organization controls this entire sector." Captain Steele's response was immediate and unflinching. "Admiral Voss, you are interfering with a legitimate rescue operation. Withdraw your forces or face the consequences." Voss laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Consequences? You destroyed a few pirates with a lucky strike. I have 80 ships at my command, including 6 dreadnoughts. What could you possibly do against such overwhelming force?" The answer came not in words, but in action. Space around the human battle group began to shimmer again, but this time the distortion was far more extensive. Ships materialized by the dozen, then by the score. Sleek destroyers, massive carriers, and fortress-like battleships bearing the insignia of Earth's expanded. Fleet Captain Zephyr's instruments counted the new arrivals, and his heart nearly stopped. 200 human warships had just entered the system, led by a super dreadnought so massive it had its own gravitational field. The vessel's name was inscribed in bold letters along its hull: Terra's Wrath. A new voice joined the communication channel, calm and authoritative. "This is Fleet Admiral Harrison of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. Admiral Voss, you have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw your forces from this system. Any hostile action will be met with complete and total retaliation." The Nexus Syndicate's war fleet, so intimidating moments before, suddenly seemed small and fragile against the assembled might of humanity's space navy. Admiral Voss stared at his sensors in shock, realizing that he had stumbled into something far beyond a simple rescue operation. Admiral Voss felt sweat beading on his cybernetic-enhanced forehead as he stared at the tactical display. His 80 ships, which had seemed like an unstoppable armada moments ago, were now vastly outnumbered by the human fleet. But his reputation and the Nexus Syndicate's control of this sector depended on projecting strength. "Fleet Admiral Harrison," Voss transmitted, his voice artificially steady. "Your show of force is impressive, but you are far from Earth. This is Nexus territory, and we will not be intimidated by newcomers to the galaxy." On the bridge of Terra's Wrath, Fleet Admiral Harrison studied the enemy formation with the calm precision of a chess master. A veteran of humanity's colonial wars, she had learned long ago that the best way to end a fight was to make it so one-sided that the enemy chose not to fight at all. "Admiral Voss," she replied, her voice carrying across space to every ship in both fleets. "Humanity has been studying galactic politics since we achieved FTL travel. We know about the Nexus Syndicate's protection rackets, slave trading, and territorial claims. What you call your territory is actually sovereign space belonging to 17 different species who are too afraid to defend themselves. The human super dreadnought's weapon systems came online, and the energy readings were unlike anything the Syndicate had encountered. Particle accelerators the size of city blocks charged with power that made their own weapons seem like toys. "You think your numbers give you an advantage," Harrison continued, "but you're making the same mistake that countless enemies made on Earth. You're assuming that because we're new to space, we're new to warfare." Captain Zephyr watched from the silver dawn as the human fleet shifted into a complex formation that seemed to flow like liquid. Every ship had a precise role, every movement calculated to maximize their tactical advantage. It was like watching a master craftsman at work. "Captain," Nixis whispered, "their formation patterns are unlike anything in our tactical databases. It's as if they're thinking several moves ahead of everyone else." On the Bloodfang, Grimjaw realized that his call for help had escalated the situation beyond anything he could have imagined. The humans weren't just defending a merchant ship anymore. They were making a statement about their place in the galaxy. Admiral Voss made his decision. "All ships attack Formation Delta. Target their flagship first. Show these humans that the Nexus Syndicate bows to no one." The Syndicate fleet launched forward, their weapons blazing across space in a coordinated assault. Plasma torpedoes, particle, beams, and kinetic projectiles filled the void between the fleets in a display of raw destructive power. But the human response was something entirely different. Instead of meeting force with force, they demonstrated why they had become the apex, predators of their homeworld. The human fleet scattered into smaller groups, each one perfectly positioned to create overlapping fields of fire while avoiding the worst of the enemy barrage. The Terra's Wrath's main guns fired for the first time, and the result was devastating. Accelerated particles traveling at near light speed tore through 3 Syndicate battleships in a single shot, their hulls vaporizing under the incredible energy release. Impossible, Voss breathed, watching his ships die. No weapon should have that much power. Fleet Admiral Harrison's voice cut through the chaos of battle. Admiral, you're thinking too small. That wasn't one weapon. It was a coordinated strike from our entire battle line, focused through our flagship's targeting system. We don't just fight as individual ships, we fight as a single, unified force. The truth of her words became apparent as the human fleet demonstrated tactics that defied conventional space warfare. Ships would appear to retreat, only to lead enemy squadrons into carefully prepared ambushes. What looked like desperate defensive maneuvers were actually complex traps that left Syndicate vessels isolated and vulnerable. Within 20 minutes, half of Admiral Voss's fleet was either destroyed or crippled. The survivors found themselves surrounded, their escape routes cut off by human ships that seemed to anticipate their every move. How? Voss transmitted on an open channel, his artificial composure finally cracking. How do you fight like this? You've been in space for less than a century. Fleet Admiral Harrison's response carried across the system, heard by every surviving ship and every witness to the battle. Admiral, you made a critical error. You assumed that because Earth is one world, we must think like one people. But humanity spent millennia fighting each other before we reached the stars. We learned strategy from Sun Tzu, tactics from Napoleon, logistics from Eisenhower, and combined arms warfare from conflicts that claimed millions of lives. The implications of her words sank in as the human fleet maintained its perfect formations, every ship working in harmony with its neighbors. When we finally united and reached for the stars, we brought all of that knowledge with us. We are not newcomers to war, Admiral. We are its masters. The remaining Nexus Syndicate ships hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down and their crews awaiting their fate. Admiral Voss sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the complete destruction of his war fleet. 73 ships destroyed or disabled in less than an hour, against 0 human losses. Fleet Admiral Harrison's image appeared on screens throughout the system as she addressed not just the defeated Syndicate forces, but every observer who had witnessed the battle. Her words would be transmitted across the galaxy within hours. Today marks the end of the Nexus Syndicate's reign of terror in this sector, she announced. For too long, peaceful species have lived in fear of pirates and criminals who believed that might made right. That era is over. On the Silver Dawn, Captain Zephyr watched in amazement as human vessels began moving through the debris field, their rescue shuttles pulling survivors from destroyed ships. Even after the devastating battle, they were saving the lives of their enemies. Captain, Nixus observed, they could have destroyed every enemy ship completely, but they held back. Many of the Nexus vessels were disabled rather than killed. Zephyr nodded slowly, beginning to understand the humans' true nature. They weren't just superior warriors. They were strategists who understood that how you win a war determines what kind of peace follows. Admiral Voss found himself face to face with Captain Steele as human boarding parties secured the remaining Syndicate ships. The human officer's expression was not one of triumph, but of grim determination. Admiral, Steele said, your organization has a choice. You can continue operating as a criminal syndicate and face the full might of the Terran Defense Fleet, or you can disband and allow your member species to find legitimate occupations. And if we refuse? Voss asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we'll make the same offer to whoever replaces you, Steele replied simply. And we'll keep making it until someone accepts. The human fleet began establishing patrol routes throughout the sector, their ships taking positions that would allow them to respond to any future distress calls within hours. It was clear that they intended to stay, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Fleet Admiral Harrison's final transmission reached every corner of known space. To all peaceful species listening to this message, know that humanity stands ready to defend those who cannot defend themselves. We ask nothing in return except the opportunity to trade freely and live in peace. To those who profit from fear and violence, understand that your time is over. We have seen what happens when good people do nothing in the face of evil, and we will not allow it to happen among the stars. Captain Zephyr opened a channel to the human flagship. Fleet Admiral Harrison, on behalf of the Valdorian people and all peaceful species in this sector, we thank you. But I must ask, what will happen now? Will humans establish an empire like so many others before them? Harrison's smile was tired but genuine. Captain, we tried empire building on Earth. It didn't end well. What we're establishing here isn't human dominion. It's a mutual defense pact. Any species that wants to trade freely and live peacefully can join. Those who choose predation over cooperation will find themselves facing not just human ships, but a united front of civilized worlds. As the human fleet settled into its new role as protectors of the trade routes, word spread throughout the galaxy. The newcomers from the death world called Earth had arrived not as conquerors, but as guardians. They brought with them technologies and tactics that made resistance futile, but also a code of ethics that promised protection for the innocent. The age of piracy in the outer sectors was over. The age of human-protected peace had begun. Grimjaw, recovering in a human medical bay after his ship's life support had failed, found himself speaking to a human medic. "Why?" he asked. "Why save me after everything?" The medic, a young woman, named Dr. Rivera, looked up from her work. "Because that's what separates us from you. We fight when we have to, but we don't forget our humanity in the process." As ships from dozens of species began arriving to witness the aftermath of the battle, it became clear that the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had announced its presence not with conquest, but with protection, not with demands for tribute, but with offers of partnership. The distress signal that had echoed across space from one small merchant ship had awakened something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that combined the tactical brilliance of apex predators with the moral code of natural protectors, and for the first time in centuries, the trade routes were truly safe.